in terms of jobs, we want a bigger share. Meanwhile, the government had also passed what is called the economically weaker sections, which allowed 10% more. So you have 60% happening in terms of reservations, and that became an issue. And to see the results that's there, you would see that things began to go terribly wrong for the BJP on that front. They tried to win back by greater polarization, bringing the Muslim factor and saying that no, the Congress and others actually want to reserve seats for the Muslims, and therefore this is anti-Hindu, but it didn't seem to think. And finally, as we get to the end, this was Naveen Patnaik, who was one of India's longest lasting chief ministers, and he said, will Naveen make history of the history? At the moment, he is history, he didn't make history, he just went down in the dustbin of history in some senses. Unfortunately, one of our, I'm not saying because I'm biased towards it, but one of our finest chief ministers who held the state and brought a different set of administration in his own style, caught by his own personality issues that happen. When you have a party that is built around an individual, once he falls, it's very difficult for a party to recover, as we saw even in Bangladesh and other places. And finally, this is the result that happened, which is the Indian electorate decided it would strike a great balance. And the outcome of that was that the BJP got 40 seats, well short of the majority that it wanted, which is 272, well short of 32. The NDA and others barely sort of, they're trying to hit 300, very difficult. From their ambitious 400, very creditable that they win for the third consecutive time, but because you pitched it so high, you began to get a negative feeling of that. And this brought the opposition to one of the strongest opposition. So to sum up, 3 or 4 factors played a very critical role in the way this is. The one was, of course, as I mentioned, the reservations factor, the youth factor. This was all kicking into unemployment and jobs. That was the issue. That was one of the biggest issues that played out. But let's not forget the BJP won in a lot of states. It lost critical swing states. So their numbers began to drop. It's not like the electorate had rejected them, but it was saying we need a balance. There were issues that the BJP has to come to terms with, and I think that they are now working towards that. We have to see how they perform in their third term. They have to deliver. There are a whole lot of issues. We heard Prime Minister Modi speak about what he wants to do in his third term, and that's of course good to understand. So there are other factors that we can talk about in our discussion. I think I've completed exactly my half an hour. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Raj Chengappa, for a really insightful presentation. It's mind-boggling to see how an organization of your size and scale deals with an election which is of that kind of scale. So I see a lot of new people, so I've just made a quick, very, very quick 15-point summary. Key things you talked about, which I think can be used in Sri Lanka: pivotal alliance shifts, political funding, power of visuals, analysis and use of statistics, state-of-the-art machinery related to that, swing states and understanding it in depth, image of the leader and image of the party, regional parties as a phenomenon, the communal factor, the key districts, to focus on those key districts which are going to be the critical ones and to put resources in, other factors like Gen V and the mood of the nation, economic reality, economic vision, regional party analysis, women vote, religious vote, caste politics, and the personalities who are critical in each election. I think these are all things that we can look at in a Sri Lankan context and look at what fits and what doesn't. But
I thought there's one slide which I thought was finally a visual representation. This is how we depicted Modi when we looked at his government. What we did was we pasted all the other faces. So he was no more the Tsar of the dominant force. There were so many other people around. Just sorry, I forgot I missed that slide. So great. I don't need to summarize that one. So we get on to a panel discussion. I'm sure a lot of you are bursting with questions. We are going to have a panel discussion, and after the panel discussion, we're going to throw it open for questions for the entire panel, including Mr. Chengappa. So hold on to your horses on the questions. Let's move forward. So we've got this really fantastic panel, and I'd like to introduce our panel. And as I introduce each of them, may I please request the panelists
to come up and be seated on the stage. So the first panelist is Dilruchi Andaneti. She's an international award-winning investigative journalist, senior editor, trainer, researcher, and rights advocate. She's worked extensively across South Asia, both on-the-ground reporter and trainer, dedicating much of her time to working with women journalists in the region. She co-founded the Colombo-based Center for Investigative Reporting and currently serves as a director after ending a 4-year stint as its executive director. She's presently employed as Monga-based Sri Lanka editor and writes a regular column with the New India Express. In 2012, she won Sri Lanka's topmost journalism award, which is the Journalist of the Year. And Dilruchi works closely with media rights and human rights organizations, especially with the gender focus. So welcome, Dilruchi. The next panelist is Saliha Virakon. Saliha is an experienced serial entrepreneur. That's an interesting terminology. Former corporate senior executive, columnist, and public speaker with 30 years in the Asia Pacific and Middle Eastern markets. He co-founded multiple ventures and held senior roles in major multinational corporations before pursuing entrepreneurship. Saliha has managed multi-million-dollar P&Ls and advised senior political leaders, bureaucrats, and business leaders in various countries. An alumnus of Harvard Kennedy School in Public Leadership, he is a fellow of the South Asia Leadership Academy and the Society of International Business Fellows. As a columnist, Saliha openly shares his ideas, connecting politics with his diverse interests and extensive experience. A non-resident fellow of Chicago-based Econ View, he is an Orange Tick best-selling author on Substack, and his columns are being published in many online news channels, print and publications around the world. I've read personally myself many of them on Daily FT. Saliha, please come on the stage. The next panelist is Mr. Rohana Hettiarachchi. Mr. Hettiarachchi has more than 30 years of election monitoring and observation experience locally and internationally, specialized in Asia-Pacific regional election monitoring and also Commonwealth liaison with election management bodies and other relevant stakeholders. He is the chairperson of Asian Network for Free Election based in Thailand, working with more than 18 countries across Asia, the executive director of People's Action for Free and Fair Elections, PAFREL, which was formed in 1987 primarily to observe elections in Sri Lanka. And they work for human rights, good governance, to uphold democracy. Furthermore, he's a member of the Governing Council of the Maga Institute of Policy Research Institution, established in 1972, and Governing Council member of National Peace Council, Vice President of Sarvodaya Shramadana Movement, which we all know very well ourselves, and a visiting lecturer at the University of Sri Lanka. He is the founder of the March 12 movement, which leads towards clean politics in our country, Sri Lanka. Mr. Hettiarachchi graduated from the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura and Masters in Sociology from the University of Kelaniya. Please, may I request you. And last but not the least is going to be our moderator and a member of our executive board, Mr. Prasad Kaushalya Dodam, a senior journalist and currently working as the Deputy Director of Foreign News and Head of the English and Foreign News of Sri Lanka Rupohani Corporation. He has professionally trained both locally and internationally, including at CNN International Professional Program, Atlanta 2002, and Asia Vision Attachment Scheme in 1998. At the same time, he's an Edward Murrow Fellow of the United States, which he obtained in 2008. Currently, he serves as a visiting lecturer at the Bandaranaike Center for International Studies, College of Journalism, and several other academies. Under his guidance, SLRC won many international awards for its contribution for Asia Vision News Network of Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union since 1996 up to now. Prasad received Director's Award of the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union, the award dedicated to the most outstanding journalist of the year back in 2022. Prasad, please, the floor is yours, and it's going to take the panel discussion forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Santosh. Thank you for wonderful introduction. And this Bollywood villain looking man made a great contribution to make this event success. Exactly. So he's the driving force behind everything, because we were journalists. Actually, we were really busy with the election schedule and all these things, but he was the driving force behind us. So with this thanking note, first I would like to, I think my task has already done by Santosh, so I don't need to introduce the panel once again, but still we have to dedicate our bulk of time for the questions, because number of journalists are here, and I think, as Santosh mentioned, that they are itching to ask questions, especially from our special guest. So without taking further time, I would like to turn towards our guests, Chengappa ji. Sir, Raj, fine. Okay. Raj, now you mentioned about many important points related to Indian election, and you gave some hints for Sri Lankan journalists to think about when they report our election process as well. Now, in this year, actually, when we think about elections, the year 2024, we can call a festival season for global elections, like Holi or Diwali in India, or the Audu in Sri Lanka. Almost nearly 4 billion people around the world, they go to polls this year. And most dramatic elections are happening. We saw what happened in India, then in the United Kingdom, and what happened in Bangladesh after the elections. Now the Trump and Biden saga in the United States, the dramatic appearance of Kamala Harris. I mean, whole lot of events, and members of my news team are here. So they are, they are always very busy with capturing all these things and reporting, because very dramatic and very eventful year when we consider elections. But in Sri Lanka, this year's election is very special, because in some elections, especially the presidential elections, we could see kind of light or kind of front runner. We can have some kind of idea when we touch the ground, the border base of Sri Lanka. But this year, all of us feel we are in a little bit kind of mystic condition, which never happened especially in the recent past. So you mentioned about certain points that how we should behave and how we should act during such situations. But now I am going to call Brutus for you because very open question. Now there are a number of young journalists here also. We have a lot of experienced journalists, but still I can see young faces. So when we face this type of particular situation, how do we analyze this scenario and go for our reports?
In Sri Lanka?
Yes, of course.
Look,
You can mix with Indian experience. You did some, but still.
No, I think all our journalists are, very competent. I don't think I have to advise, to be very honest, my Sri Lankan compatriots. They do an outstanding job, as I said when I spoke. And look, I may have been 40 years in the business, but I believe that you have to keep learning. And, nothing is sort of done and over with. The moment Raghu Rai was one of the greatest photographers that we had, we did a lot of features together. So while I was traveling with him, I was very young, and we were doing our first assignment. And he said, the moment you think you've made it, you're finished. So the effort is that we don't have the answers. That's the larger question. The effort is, I think, journalism is a continuing university, where we have to constantly learn, we have to constantly adapt, and not just from examples from India, but across what can we pick up. It is just like business, you can't be static. Today, it's in a world that is so vastly complex in terms of media, that you can do anything across the spectrum and achieve a lot. Earlier, the entire media was controlled by a few, who then sort of, like the Pope or God, would dispense information down based on their their standings. But today, media is far more democratic, it is far more expansive, and that I think is a great challenge. How do you bring, as you do, I had to, as I say, I was joking in the morning, old dog learns new tricks, in the sense I have to do a video cast, I have to do a podcast, and so I have an audio show, I have a video show, and I'm writing. Right? That's 3 times the amount of work I would do even as a young correspondent. So as soon as I finish a story, then I do a video, then I do it. Now, the idea is, I think you have to touch every medium across. And the stories you tell and the way you tell it, each medium has their own, this thing which I needn't time, you're all experts in. But where the real issue I think we have to be careful about is that when you had an established institution, where there was a newspaper, there was an editor, there was controls of checks and balances, accuracy, all those factors are very critical in journalism. The only thing a journalist has is his credibility. If his credibility goes, there is a trust and credibility factor. If your reader, viewer, watcher, listener doesn't trust you anymore, they shut you down. So it's very important that, especially as media becomes more broad-based, more democratic in its expanse, where individual people don't need an established institution to start off a blog, and they are highly popular, as we've seen in India, Dhruv Rathis and others who came and made a huge difference in terms of the way people thought. Journalists owe it to their viewers, listeners, readers to present a balanced perspective, to find all points of view. I mean, these are the cardinals. That it's like, since cricket is a favorite game and he said he's bowling full toss to me. One of the, I'm not hitting you for 6, okay? One of the cardinal things that when you listen to all these senior players is, remember to always ground your back when you're running. Don't run just like as though you are the star, right? One of the cardinal principles of journalism is that you have to follow the grounding of the bat, which is double check your information. Have you spoken to everybody? Have you got, if you're making a serious allegation or making a political point, have you done your homework? It's so easy to be sensational and get your numbers, and you say something that is so atrocious that people can't, but that is always short-lived. I always found that if you do your research well, you start learning first. That's why I said it's a continuing university. I don't know it, the presumption starts, let me know more. And today you've got fabulous opportunities, all of us have, not just Sri Lankan journalists, Indian journalists, is read, take all the data, crunch it, talk to as many people as you have, do the job a journalist traditionally does, which is to get the whole spectrum of opinion, and when you speak, you are reflecting not Raj's or her opinion or anyone, it is the opinion of a very distilled, curated opinion, so the viewer, reader appreciates and says, that person I want to read, listen, do it, because I know that person doesn't come with a bias. So I think the fundamentals of good journalism is very critical in all these processes. That's my lesson.
Yes, with that note, actually, you can ask many questions from him later. We are going to finish the first round of questions, then we'll open the floor for your questions. Then I'm going to turn towards Mr. Rohan. Yeah, actually very busy man during these days, very difficult to catch him. And he actually came here after attending some other functions as well. Thank you for your contribution, Mr. Rohan. Now he has the major task of with other organizations monitoring and ensuring the free and fair election process in Sri Lanka. He was doing it for last 30 years according to the introduction we heard. And Mr. Rohan, now you have many areas to cover during this process. One key area is media. And yesterday when we had a brief chat, you mentioned about funding and you are having kind of a new process of monitoring funding or something like that. So could you briefly tell us about that?
First of all, thank you for taking me here. I think this elections is one of the important for these elections. The first time in Sri Lankan history, we are bringing this campaign finance ceiling. I'm sure that the Elections Commission had a consultations with the political party as well as the candidate yesterday morning, and probably they will bring the ceiling amount for one voter, and we have 17 million. So I'm sure that it will be less. I know the figure actually, but it will be less than 200 per one person. So, but it will be huge amount, even if it is 200, calculating with the voter populations. So this time, each candidate should produce two reports after the election. One is their income report, all the incomes in cash or in kind. So they have to make proper report, and they have to make the note where they are getting those cash support or in-kind support with the names, ID numbers and the amount. And then the second report, they have to produce the expenses report. That also should include every single expenses and with the evidence within 3 weeks of immediately after the election. Within 3 weeks, they have to submit this report. So that the issue here is who can measure those reports, who can say whether it's right or wrong. So there is no mechanism in Sri Lanka, even under the law, they have not proposed any mechanism to the elections management body. So therefore we get together as a civil society, as an observers group, in consultation with the elections commissions, and also in consultation with the bribery commission, civil rights commission, inland revenue department. So there are various actors in it, but basically the first time in Sri Lankan history, all the elections monitoring body, all in a sense, the key, there are a few others also, but those who engage with us from the beginning, I think there are 6 monitoring organizations. We get together and we, how do you say that, we have a tool to monitor this campaign finance. But of course we have to deploy the ground level observers. So we distributed the numbers among all the observers group. Because the campaign can be different from candidate to candidate, and they will use the mainstreaming media, social media. Actually, they have already started. The millions of money they have already spent. So we are not in a position to monitor that. Even if we monitor that, it will not counted for their campaign ceiling. So from tomorrow onwards, we are going to monitor the ground level. And it will, every organization, the organization's observers will bring their observations to the secretariat. We have established a secretariat. We launched it actually yesterday with the Elections Commission, or with their participations also. So everyone will contribute to that tool. So the original idea, I don't know how far it will success because it's the first time we also experiencing it. So every day we will get a report, okay, what is the level of candidate A expenses, what is the level of B, C, D, something like that. So when they reach to their ceiling amount, it will be, they will go for the red zone, something like that. So then they also can understand or realize that they are in that ceiling amount. But it all depends on the numbers which we are getting from the ground level. It is not easy. It's a very challenging task. I think we need to support from the media also because you also getting a lot of informations. But as Mr. Raj said, so the important point here is the accuracy. We as an observer, we also very serious about it. We are getting various complaints, various numbers every day. But if we can't confirm or get second, third opinion or second, third sources, we are not in a position to take it to the public because this is very sensitive. It will, end of the day, it will affect for the candidate. So therefore, we are very careful on that. But this is the first time we are exercising this. But I am sure that we can do something. But it will be mainly useful for next parliamentary elections and the local elections. It will be not that harder because in this election we have to get the entire country as one vote. So it is not easy. If one person, so 10 people are not doing their job properly, it will affect for the whole thing. Because this is one job, one vote actually. So this is what we are trying to do. We hope so that we can contribute something. But then again, I need to say because a lot of media colleagues are here. So this will not be a perfect exercise, but we will try with your support, with your collaboration.
Thank you, Mr. Karachi. Next, we are going to move towards Sali. Yes, Devi. Yesterday we had a chat before this panel and as a preparation note. So we raised 2 points and one we had an argument about the women representation. But later on, this morning she gave me the permission, but now I'm not going to ask that question. You can join. Right. Okay, that's the end, right? We represent many forums and many occasions as journalists, and she's okay, great. First, I would like to ask you now. You are representing the spectrum of investigative journalism in Sri Lanka, and you have a vast experience on this. Now, as a journalist, how do you see the current spectrum, especially under this election scenario, as well as we are very rapidly moving towards digital era, and so in this scenario, what are the challenges we face, especially during this period, this election and reporting elections, as well as in our day-to-day work?
Thank you, Prasad, and thank you for having me. But I think I answered that first question that you did not want to ask because I intimidated you yesterday while we were talking about it. So the question about women's representation, I quickly, connected to investigative reporting. I think the fact that we are still asking this question requires some unpacking itself. So since Adeline Molamure became a parliamentarian, in 76 years, we have had 60 legislators. That, I think the numbers should tell a certain story. It's a damning story for all women to consider. And the fact that we still want to ask that question is pretty relevant. But I think the men who run the political establishment should explain why women don't find the space to come into politics. Besides the societal, familial, other issues that are really putting them down and preventing them from entering mainstream, the sticky floors and the glass ceilings do exist. And Rohan and I have been having this discussion a lot about why there is no, Raju spoke about the reservations. We don't even believe in that. If so, we would have even thought about some of it. Do we have similar groups, classes of people that who require special representation to be, introduced via legislation. We haven't thought about that. Forget the quota which is at the local, authorities level. So, I'll give you two examples because we're storytellers. One story is about, one of our journalists did a story about what do women do in order to get nominations. And one girl interviewed a Pradesh Sabha member. This is a local authorities batch. So we wrote and spoke about campaign finance, also spoke about how transparent it's going to be. And then what is the investment that the political parties actually make in women? This needs to be asked. Our numbers are telling a story. And the privileged, the widowed, or connected women are making it. Very few women have really, come through the grassroots level and made it. We have real systemic barriers. So what are the political parties doing? What is our system acceptance of the need to address this issue? We are 56% of the voters in this country. That's 52% of this country's population. And we do not even look at the issues that keep the women down. Political parties do not want to invest in women. So going back to the Pradesh Sabha member, she said she went before a nomination board and she had to actually show her deed, house deed and property deeds to show that she has some way of financing her campaign. This was amazing. And then there was a sitting parliament member who also spoke to the same journalist and said, I also had to pawn money, I had to pawn jewelry, I had to also sell some of my properties. You know this person? So these are the things that happen. And the fact that sometimes nomination boards are also, highly gendered. Nominations boards do not have women members. And we also don't have, there is also sexual exploitation of would-be candidates. So I think I'll stop there and take your real question. It's about investigative reporting and what are the challenges. I think the challenges are similar and different. Because of the digital age, there are new challenges and also new opportunities. The opportunity to be a journalist, to be able to do stories and to be responsible. Whether it's digital or the mainstream, the legacy media, I think it's all about getting the basics right and doing the story professionally. As long as that happens, I don't think this whole generational debate and the questioning that we see a lot and the judging may possibly not happen. Minority votes. Raj also spoke about swing states. We also used a few journalists because right now we are doing investigations at ground level to understand what do people feel about the possibilities for Sri Lanka on September 21st and beyond. So there were key factors. Horse racing. We are journalists. We also run with candidates. We are so good at it. We think we don't like it when people pole vault, but media houses also have this practice of having journalists cover certain politicians and also promoting directly or indirectly, not understanding, propping up some people. And there is this thing called the public polls, popularity polls, and the science of the popularity polls. Women don't figure, as you said. Women's voices are not lost. So if we are 56% of the voters, how do we figure in those polls? That would be a question. 1 million new voters voting for the first time, right, after 2019. So how would they vote? Do we know? So we did a small aspirational study across 18 districts. Sample size is small, but we made sure that we touched most of these districts and ethno-religious and age groups to understand. When I look at the poll results that we read, no offense to all these people who do these scientific polls, scientific because the methodology needs to be disclosed and sampling has to be quite right. What we felt, the reporters felt, was that there was a different ask from the community. The different ask from community, to quote from someone like Devi and from T. Sainath, who actually wrote about ground level reporting and what it means, how do you crunch the data, long before data journalism was discussed. And I think he is really the father of data journalism in that sense, because he put the numbers. He said this is how it happens, this this is how people are going to becoming poor, and this is where poverty is affecting their food security. So I think that's really important. So how do minority parties or people belonging to ethnic religious minorities, look at the poll? Some of these reflections that we are getting were not what we felt that people were reflecting on. They thought there should be candidates who come together, who will actually will be willing to work together, because this is the first time after the economic collapse Sri Lanka is going for an election of this level, this magnitude, a presidential. It's make or break. Every election is interesting, every election gets coverage, but it is really important to cover it with absolute depth, because it's about us and our future this time. And to be able to understand the candidates and the candidates' popularity, the polls, people said were not giving them a true indicator. I know Sally, you're going to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. So the swing states and the coverage of polls, and there were also fact checking. I think newsrooms have to have fact checkers. Either you are a fact checker yourself, or newsrooms create fact checking opportunities. There is so much data, there is so much disinformation, it is fed by the political organizations and interested parties, influence groups. Let's not kid ourselves, it's here in this country right now, it's very operational. And you have it, you have foreign interests, let's not kid ourselves, it's not that, it is here. And you also feed into some of these polls. I see you smiling also, Suriya. So the polls are not true, if they're not truly a reflection. How do we find out what people really are looking for? Are we going to be surprised on 22nd of September completely, like the 400? And are we going to think that there is a better way of covering, and also newsrooms have to be able to deal with the disinformation? Political disinformation is an industry by itself. Books have been written by our colleagues, particularly in India. And so it's there are disinformants paid to do campaigns, there are influence groups, so newsrooms have to deal with that, Prasad. I think there are multiple challenges, but it's a great time to be doing journalism, I would say. It's so interesting.
Yes, exactly. It's a great time to do journalism. Yeah, now let's turn towards our final panelist, Suriya. Now, when we heard about his profile note, he's a man with covering many areas, but most of us in the field of journalism, we know him as a columnist, a writer. So I found one of his articles. Actually, he wrote it exactly 1 year ago. Yesterday we discussed about it, and I thought it was this week. The date was 16th August, Wednesday. Then I asked Suriya, no, Prasad, that I wrote it last year, not this year. I thought he wrote this one for this election because it's very relevant. I'll read it, the caption, the heading of the article: the next presidential election, win the digital vote to win the election. In that article, he says, conventional campaigning methods are essential, but digital is the hero. There won't be thousands in election rallies. The candidate who pays posters will be looked down upon. So there are many points, and another important point he made. It's a little bit controversial, and it's a remark about media. If he's not correct, you can grab him by neck. Our media people are here. He says, it's like,
I didn't know that I'll be in a storm of controversy.
yes.
Very hard to figure it out.
Sorry, I missed the point. Yeah, he says that here.
I also have said that.
You are saying no controversy.
Yeah.
I also have written that media people are not getting paid enough.
Here. Last I found it. In Sri Lanka, the press is dead. and the radio listenership is down to single digits. Out of home media has no impact, and the TV has currently due to believability, but viewership has taken a nosedive year after year. This is a very challenging situation. We also face a similar type of realities in our.
Thank you.
So I accept. Because I am from the television field and we know the challenges, and my colleagues are here from the television field, the other media, they are also same. So now, Suriya, you mentioned about this digital war in elections. You mentioned this exactly 1 year ago. Now what's the situation? What do you think about the current phase of this digital war?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prasad. Raj, it's an honor to be here. I never thought that we will share the same stage, and it's great to be here. Rohana, having seen you for a long period of time, the work you have done, really appreciate you have not only you, the Kafral, and many other people that have shaped elections. I remember when I was growing up, election was brutal. People were killed, and the vote rigging, the ballot boxes were taken out, and I mean, a lot of people have done a lot of things in shaping Sri Lanka for what it is today. Dear Lukshi, I never thought that we will share the same stage, and but there's a reason why I asked Lukshi to speak first. 2004, tsunami happened on 26th of December. I was on 27th cleaning some of the areas in Gaul and this and that. So she's a tsunami. I had to send her first so I can clean it, okay? I like what you said. I like what you said. She's one of those journalists that who stood for the truth. And I grew up reading Big Ivan when I was 10. It was a magazine at that time. I come from a very political, active family. And my ancestors fought for independence from the previous early hundreds one and 1948. Some of them were involved in setting up some of the parties. I had a great challenging childhood, and my grandfather was involved in some of the political work as well. He said that whatever you do in life, ensure that you have a leg in politics. I was 17, and I asked him why. He said that when you learn politics, you understand betrayal. You'll have less expectations. You'll be emotionally detached, which I am. And he said that you'll be able to see through people very well when you understand politics. This is 1994. I'm 48. Sorry if I look older than that. I'm not. When I shave my beard, you saw a photograph. So the point is that my journey from the political world, like 21st of July 1989, my brother, my protector, my mentor, my everything that was killed on 21st of July 1989. He was my first cousin, but he was my brother, and I didn't have an elder brother. That day changed my life, and I became a total believer of non-violence. And that's why I believe that when it is here, the pen is always mightier than the sword or the gun or the RPG. And I firmly believe it. You don't have to fight up in a war physically. Now, coming back to what I wrote 16th August 2023, I said, next presidential election, win the digital war to win the election. Milind Rajapaksa, what do you think? I don't have to say it. It's digital war, right? You win, you win. There was always reasons why the last many years I started covering heavily Indian politics, especially especially the anti-corruption movement with Anna Hazare and Arvind Kejriwal. Unfortunately, the man who fought for anti-corruption is in jail right now for corruption. What does it mean? Because this is what politics is about. When you get into leadership, irrespective of anyone, whether you like it or not. When you are in the power game, when you tolerate people, when you get financing from people finance you to be a leader, not that because they like you, they also have interest. So that's why tomorrow I'm writing my column. Tomorrow you will see politics shapes business, business shapes politics. Tomorrow's column I've already written. So why I said it in 2023 November 26. I said 8+1 elections because I knew that I'm going to cover all elections, which I have covered. I've started covering the US election as well. In Indian election specifics, I covered Taiwan, I covered Bangladesh, I covered India, Pakistan, Russia, and UK. There was South Africa, there was European Union. The 8+1 was US, of course. 8+1 was Sri Lanka. Because I thought people are talking about 8 elections worldwide. +1 Sri Lanka is more important than most of the countries that we're talking about. Because Sri Lankan election, a lot of people don't talk about the geopolitics here. There's Indian side here, there's Chinese side here, there's Japanese side here, there's Russian side here, there's US side here. Don't quote me what I say. I say that Sri Lanka is like, don't want to get married, but everyone's babe kind of thing, right? You can't be married because everybody wants you. Right? Because you can't. The reason is that how important geopolitically Sri Lanka is, because Indian Ocean is a hotbed of the global trade. If instability here, it affects the whole world. And there are strategic defense interests, there are political interests, there are cultural interests. So if you don't understand the sensitivity of people, when you start reporting, forget about the local. Locally, the politicians, the political parties, Milinda is laughing, and he's one of the founding members of Sri Lanka. Podujana Perumana, you know what you went through, right? Today, the party lines have been broken up. There are individuals are emerging, 7, 8 presidential candidates, strong candidates. The confusion that people have right now, I can ask you right now, I'll ask you one question from Sri Lanka. Don't tell me whom you're voting. How many of you have not decided, don't know whom you're voting for? Can you say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Sorry? Yeah. So when there is a confusion, the media also don't know how to report. Yeah. Confusion is such. Politicians comes and tell you, oh, we are winning. Rajesh also say he is also winning. Look, she's also saying he's also winning. The media journalist's job is to capture that reporting. But when you report it, you get attacked as well, because you have reported what somebody has said. But is this the way that journalism is shaping up in the world? Absolutely not. Now people are getting into more to the digital. Raj is doing a podcast, weekly one. Because why? The younger generation is on digital. Older generation is on digital, right? My Facebook has become the 60+ people, right? The mother-in-law, father-in-law, they are posting now. We used to post about 15 years ago. The younger generation have moved to Instagram, right? And some of them have moved from Instagram to, right, some other platform. Some are absolutely silent. A lot of people are not even posting their personal life anymore. It just not used to be, because the data there, the issues around the communication, the reputation management, all these issues are coming up. So digital is shaping. I'm a firm believer of press, because I write on a newspaper, right? Because it's important for me to write on a newspaper and take it digital, because there is credibility. I write with Mr. Kasim, right? I never thought that I'll be on stage. This is my first appearance in Sri Lanka, and it's my self-exile. Mr. Kasim convinced me to be here today, and I said that, why are you doing this to me? Because this is how I talk when I talk. And When I write also like that, what do I do, right? And this is me. But the issue is that Indian election, what I saw, Raj, I covered about 6 months before, and I was on the ground just before the election, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I met people, the tuk-tuk drivers, the Uber drivers, the hotel staff, waiters. I talked to even, I've spoken to people here as well. When I street talk, I met entrepreneurs, I met political leaders from both sides. I figured, even I told Nizar, when he asked me, what do you think? I said 320 for Modi. I said he will win. I was in Delhi, I came down and I wrote Asian rower with President Xi Jinping's photo and Premier Narendra Modi's photo. And I connected the China story and the Indian story and said it's a Messiah story, which reached about 72 online platforms in the world to my story, and thanks to my publishing team, and it read by about 1.2 million people. Because the story before the election, when you capture the China story and India story and Sri Lanka story with the Trump story, it really worked. So, online, the digital, is going to shape whether you like it or not. 2014, after the Anna Hazare movement, the anti-corruption, when it came to a point, 2014 election, it was the first real digital war election happened in 2014, Narendra Modi versus Rahul Gandhi. I remember Rahul Gandhi didn't even have a website at that election. He's a young guy, the old man was in digital. He won hands only, right? 2019, he comes back and he wins in a landslide. Now, 2024, it was anti-incumbency. You can't win elections like that. Because how can you please 1.5 billion people? You can't. We can't even please 22 million people. You can't do that. So 400 seats allocation, the polls just said for 3 months before 400. Week before said that 370. When the election day happened in India, it was funny. Just before that day, the India Alliance, the Rahul Gandhi side said, there will be voter reading, there will be Supreme Court will be muscled, there will be ballot boxes will be electric voting machine will change. I thought India is a kingdom of democracy, it should not happen. But I was not worried. But by about 11 o'clock, when the polling results were coming, opposition were winning. So people who criticized for months, day before, changed completely and said, oh my God, we're going to win. What happened to the Modi people? They've been silent. These are all digital conversations. They've been silent. They thought, this cannot be. Because we thought we will win by 400. At least we thought that we will get 350. Some at least said that we'll get 320. Some said at least we'll get 300. And here is at 11 o'clock, people are saying, he's going to lose. So what will happen to if that's the case? People are celebrating from their day. 11 o'clock, stock market crash. Stock market, Indian Sensex was down. 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock is a crazy situation like that. 1 o'clock, oh, Modi is winning. How did that happen? What does it happen to these people who are criticizing, projecting? Why? I mean, I saw so much of anger and racism in India. I thought that Sri Lanka, we should be okay. Our racism and our disharmony and all that. India, I saw it. Bangladesh, I saw it. Pakistan had a situation of very crazy. And AI was used heavily for the Imran Khan campaign. Taiwan was another crazy election. Right? People say that, oh, it's about sovereignty, whether it's your Chinese side, whether it's your US side. Because it started from the Maldives election, with the Lushik captured. Maldives election, right? Because it was a battle between China or the India. But Posimuzi's side went to the Chinese axis, and you know the debacle happening, the Indians not going to Maldives, economically crumbling, and all these things when it took over. it was carnage. So as media people, journalists, I think you have a huge role to shape not the public opinion. You have a role to say what you think is right. Now, what you think is right is subjective. But at least if you work a little bit hard to have two sides of the story, which I always write. Now, probably that's why I've never been challenged yet or been targeted yet. I'm okay with that, right? But globally, I've been perceived for my writing well in the geopolitical actors as well, because I write, if I write about India, I write about China as well. I write about US as well. When I write about here, knowing at least the 7 main candidates are personally known to me, or 1 degree of separation. Now maybe the Rajapaksa is this, or 1 degree of separation from normal Rajapaksa who have lived of my life, right? Now I can't possibly take a view on talking about, because that's a freedom that I wanted. And till the election is over, I never thought that I will come and talk. So do not misquote me, especially my journalist guys, because I should not be seen breaking my freedom, because the digital media is so bad. You saw at the election day, nomination day, the man who shook the hand got attacked. The man who didn't shake the hand got attacked. Right? What do you do? Press, you can write about it tomorrow. By that time, tsunami has happened. You can only clean. TV bulletin at 7 o'clock, you can only capture. Well, state media as well, long time ago. And in political conversations, they happen in the news bulletin and a couple of talk shows. That's all. You can't write political news 24 hours. So if you run a 7 o'clock bulletin, it happened all through the day. Fake news had done, fake news been challenged, the challenge is being faked again. By that time, you run your news. Your work. So how do you, as electronic media, the press, you need to why you're thinking differently and how to get into. Some of the journalists have got into Twitter, some of the journalists got into YouTube, and a lot of fake news are going around, a lot of allegations. Before I close it, Dhruvi Rathi, right? And 20 million the subscribers. What Dhruvi Rathi is doing there, a lot of people are doing here as well. Dhruvi Rathi's story is 20 million, now it's got 25 million subscribers. He challenged the Premier Modi and the BJP government. But I wrote on that Asian rover, fame game is a different game. But is anybody talking about it today? Is anybody talking about Arvind Kejriwal today? When Arvind Kejriwal in the middle of the campaign, you must see that everybody said that, okay, he's clean. Today, after the election, nobody talks. So betrayals are part of the politics here, and you need to understand it. Polling, before I conclude, polling, I stood for saying polling is, do not mislead by polling. And I had to write very strong one, 40% undecided votes, and after that, a lot of people went and confirmed it. Last one, I'm here to say that I grew up reading a lot of journalists, Dilukshi, Nisakazit, to other people, which is dear to me, was people who got assassinated, Lasanta Vikramadunga and Sivaram. Both Lasanta I have never met in my life, but Sivaram I met once. And there were many journalists who were killed in Sri Lanka. And thankfully, we at least have an environment that nobody has been intimidated as far as I know. Right? That we should cherish the same way that we need to understand. Justice may not come for some people, but actually there is natural justice. I'm a firm believer of natural justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sally. Actually, it was a long comment, but I was not.
Sorry, the Bollywood villain returns. Yeah, so just a quick one. I think we are running a little behind schedule. So what we will do is we will take 3 questions from the audience directed at Raj Chengappa. Raj, we have about 10 minutes more because I think we've got another appointment scheduled. My able friends told me that, so I think probably we need to do 3 questions in 3 minutes each. Yeah. Can you pass on? But before the question, I have to say a really spirited conversation here in the panelists. Thank you so much, all of the panelists, for taking the time and the effort. I think really engaging. Time flew so fast, one doesn't even realize how fast. It's really, really engaging. Thank you so much, all of you. Big round of applause once the panelists.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kanguva. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Sri Lanka India Media Association. Mr. Chengappa, I want to ask.
Please call me Raj.
Thank you, sir.
Used to. Yeah, please go ahead. We're all in the same.
Mr. Raj, I want to ask you regarding India heading to the election in Sri Lanka. So we could have seen past few years regime change in South Asian nations, right? So I want to ask in South Asia, we could have seen the three regime changes in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka also. Mr. Imran Khan, the former premier of Pakistan, blamed the establishment, Pakistan army. It was behind of the regime change in Pakistan. And our leader, former President Gotabaya also blamed, and Madam Hasina also blamed the regional and the world superpowers for their over the government. Can you tell me about this kind of change? How will it impact the South Asian political and economic? How will it impact the South Asian politics and economics? And I want to introduce myself first. I'm Fazan Nawaz from Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, which is the oldest radio in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
That's a very huge question. It goes way beyond this. To speak as journalists, I think we are witnessing some of the most turbulent times that's been there. It's happened in the past as well. What we are seeing is an aspirational outbreak of a magnitude none of us can imagine. That's because I think the population bulge, particularly in the subcontinent. If you take a look at India, we have a population bulge that's like 400, 500 million young people in the working age group of 18 to 40 who want to get ahead. The media has shown how others live. You cannot afford to have a K-shaped growth in a country, meaning only one angle gets all the wealth and the others don't have it. So inequalities will become a big issue. If you notice how Rahul Gandhi's fascist entire campaign on the word Nyaya or justice, social justice, economic justice, all kinds of justice, because I think people, and that's what we need to watch out for. Bangladesh happens because it starts as a student protest against jobs and reservations. In India, part of the reason why the government goes down, gets lesser numbers is because, as I said earlier, certain sections of people believe that they're going to lose out on that. And so unemployment has become a big issue. Sri Lanka, if you look, cost of living, all those big issues are there. So you have a very young population that is highly demanding. And you will continue to see this unrest go across if you get bad governance. Anyone who tries to think that they know better and move into an authoritarian phase, not hear the voices of the people, not record or take the feedback and change their way of functioning, will pay the price. Sooner or later, we saw it happening in Sri Lanka. You cannot make overnight decisions anymore. You have to build. Mr. Modi realized it when he tried on the farm laws. He had pulled back as people went on the streets and said, there's no way you can impose a law of this kind, three laws, without taking the key stakeholders in mind. In Bangladesh, they tried to do that, and the consequences of that is not immediate just because of the quota, because there was a certain amount of authoritarianism that had grown. You had shoved the opposition down, you were not allowing free and fair elections. You are going to pay the price. So I think, given, as I said, the democratization of media, that democratization impacts the young the most. As my friend was saying here, the digital world, I would not say that it fully determines the election, but has a very powerful